And we're back with another episode of the Armchair Crew Chief. You have the lovely voices of Jordan and Josh in your ears this week. Hopefully we'll get the video going if you really want to see what we look like. If not, we don't blame you. So we had Atlanta. It was, historically one of the wild tracks now with the new repave. And it didn't disappoint, I didn't think, in Cup Series. The Xfinity and trucks left some things to be desired. So it's, trucks, you had Kyle Busch pretty much run the table like he normally does. He claimed he was putting on a clinic for all the people.
Saw that, yep.
Yeah. And the biggest thing that I took back from the trucks was, we were just talking about it before the show, the jet dryers blowing the kitty litter into the trucks.
Yeah.
I mean, you had them sitting there. I think Kyle Busch was complaining about it. Stuart Friesen got on the radio and was like, "Oh, I can taste it and I can feel it in my mouth." And he's got a stinking helmet on and he's feeling it. So,
and breathing systems too.
Yeah, right. So I thought that was pretty wild. Friesen had a chance to win the race. Listening, and I kind of agree with this, listening to Actions Detrimental, he went too early. And so what he should have done, Kyle Busch did to him, side drafted him almost to the flag and then beat him out there. So I think it's going to be one of those things. Hopefully the guys can learn from it. I mean, Kyle Busch, the one thing I don't like about Kyle Busch running the trucks, and I get it, he's got to get his experience and he gets the money, but it's the whole, he's winning at every single thing. I feel the same way with a lot of the Xfinity. Whenever you have Chase Elliott's and Kyle Busch is going there, Byron's, they run the gamut with the races, and it's like it's no fun.
Right. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword because the guys, the drivers, it's tough because like the drivers that really aren't in contention for like championship, they love the experience to be able to follow those guys around a track.
Right.
But then at the end of the year, it's like you're losing out on positions where guys can't get points because these Cup guys are coming down and kind of sandbagging these lower divisions per se. So it's really, I don't know if there's a perfect solution, but it is, I don't really like it. No other sports do you ever see the top tier guys going backwards.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. There's limited race time, but like, I think there should be less of it than what there is. I mean, but I'm not in the sport, so maybe they like it enough to where they want more of it. But to me, as just a fan, like I don't want to see these guys race in the Truck Series, and I don't want to see them, coming down a level or two in racing quality and just dominating the field. Like, yes, guys can learn from you, but like you're also manipulating the whole race to. Yeah,
it's like a Shohei Ohtani or somebody like that. Playing AAA and majors consistently.
Like, you don't see it anywhere else.
Yeah. And they made the rules what was that, a year or two ago to kind of like limit it, but still it's like they're still there for 3 races.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't know that I fully understand it because I'm just a fan. I'm not in the garage, I'm not involved in it to the degree.
Kyle Busch said it back when he had KBM. He did it because he could bring in the big money sponsors to help fund everything.
More TV time.
And because trucks is more or less daddy's money's paying for it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And there's still like $100,000 to run a truck a weekend, something like that.
Not cheap.
So yeah, definitely. And that's what you're seeing is these companies that have these trucks that need the money. They're bringing in the big guns to help them bring in the money. So Kyle Busch pretty much ran the gamut of it. We had 4 cautions, if I remember correctly. But what was wild about it, though, too, we had some good gold. Frankie Muniz's radio got put on social media, and he was singing Creed to his crew chief, which is pretty hilarious because they're like, "Oh yeah, you got to shut the whole truck down." He's like, "You mean I got to turn off my Creed CD too?" He's like, "Yeah, unfortunately."
That's funny.
So, and then one of the other big things that kind of came out of that, speaking of Frankie, was, and I think this happened with Haley Deegan too, is he's like, I'm not getting the respect out there. People are bumping into me. They're treating me like crap. Which, I mean, I get it, I guess.
Yeah. I guess when you come in with fame, they don't respect you the same.
Right. So like you said, it's a double-edged sword for multiple reasons.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. There's something about like someone that came in from a different industry, like with his own fame, and then now he's in. I always think of NASCAR as being like such an underground grassroots sport. Like it's just like you ask 100 people in the street about a single racer, and they can't tell you a name. Like,
right.
But you got a guy that grew up acting his whole childhood career. Everybody knows who Frankie Muniz is.
Right. And
then here we are. He's racing. He did ARCA. Now he's doing truck. Like he's working his way up there. I think it's cool to see someone that like enjoys their passion.
Right.
And just goes for something.
I think Haley would have been done well if it wasn't. I think she got babied, and they'll tell me differently, but I think she got babied with it.
Yeah.
But I mean, she had the whole motocross. I mean, her dad brought all that with her.
Yeah.
So I think it's the same way, and it's tough for those guys to see them kind of go in and fight it, but hopefully he can turn it around and actually do something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I got more respect for him than someone that just comes in for a race as a professional.
Right.
Like,
yeah. Well,
he started down the bottoms,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Dean Thompson, and he bumped up to the Xfinity series now, but it seemed like he was always trying to purposely wreck Deegan.
Yeah.
When they were together, I couldn't stand him racing. So I don't know. It's interesting. Friesen had the issues. I think Ankrum had some issues with him, or not issues per se, but like drafting wise issues to cause that misfortune.
Close finish.
Yeah, I think it would have been a lot closer if Friesen, but I think Junior mentioned it. It chalked up to inexperience at these kind of races, the drafting track races as he calls them, because they're not restrictor plates.
Yeah.
So, but they weren't even restrictor plates back before they went to fuel injected. They were tapered spacer plate races.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. See if Frankie can do anything.
Yeah.
See if I think Friesen's a good runner. I mean, I think it was him and his wife used to run the dirt when they had Bristol dirt.
Okay.
I think his wife actually ran it too. And so that was pretty cool to see a husband and wife.
Yeah.
And I think they were separate teams.
That's cool.
So yeah, it was pretty it was pretty neat. Moving on, we had Xfinity, RCR once again running the drafting track table, if you want to call it that. Jesse Love got the pole. Hill led a lot of laps. Austin Hill did. But watching the race, it was frustrating as a fan, especially with the TV, seeing everything, because nobody could get together to form. They were racing each other behind him instead of kind of teaming up to go past him.
Mm-hmm.
Allgaier had this issue, which they asked Junior about it on his. What should he have done? Because he got the lead, and then a caution came out, and he chose the bottom to stay with his teammate, the 8. And when he got pushed out, he stayed with the 8, and the 8 couldn't keep up with them and keep pushing instead of getting in front of Hill. And I think it was perfect. Junior saying, if you let them get out the 21, the 2, if you let them get out, you pretty much just given the lead back. It's one of those that you can't let them do that.
Yeah.
So
got to read the track, see
right.
what lanes are hot. You might be better off picking a higher or lower lane, even if you're not with a teammate. Depending on, the top's been firing off. You need to get in that lane to take some position, and then get back with your teammate after a lap or two, getting up to speed.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I can't remember how many laps he led, but it was a lot. Jesse Lowe, he led quite a few, but not as much as Austin Hill. And I mean, it was between him them two fighting back and forth with a few people. Almirola led a lap, and Sam Mayer led a lap, but it was the RCR show, and it was I felt like it was the whole idea that, RCR gets in front and they do that. I don't know why they can't translate that to their Cup Series cars though.
Yeah.
That boggles my mind.
Yeah.
Is, you have Kyle. Now, I don't really like Austin Dillon. I don't like how he drives when he gets on those kind of tracks, because he'll just punt anybody to get the win. And that's how a lot of his wins that I've seen are. But Kyle Busch, as much as I don't like him, the dude can run. And I've kind of liked him a little bit more because he seems to calm down since Prexton's racing now. He's like, I don't want him making the same hot-headed mistakes that I made.
Yeah.
So to that extent, he's calmed down some, but he's still, his last wins were Gateway 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It was his last win.
He's had a rough stretch.
Very much so.
A really rough stretch.
Yeah.
Considering his career, he's had a pretty outstanding career in terms of race wins and that type of thing. So, for your Joe Schmo, he's doing fine. In Cup, he had a pretty bad year last year, but overall, he's still very competitive.
He's Cup still up there competing for wins.
Your top racers in stock or asphalt, closed non-open.
Good old technical difficulties. But yeah, that's kind of weird to see him not being up there per se. He was one of those that they said for Daytona he should have been one of the best your bets to win it, because he's finished the past few years top 5, I think it was, something like that. So we'll see if he turns it around. I don't know. RCR, again, like I said, RCR, it's like they focus more on their Xfinity Series racing than they do their Cup Series, which could be wrong, but I'm looking at it as a fan from the outside, it definitely looks like that. Yeah. So who knows?
It's hard to tell exactly what they have going on internally. Maybe they have a business strategy of they'd rather win Xfinity races than get 20th in Cup. They spend more money and time in their Xfinity cars, because from the sounds of it, Cup is extremely difficult. The competition is just really tough.
Well, and
so it's you could spend millions of dollars to be competitive at Cup, where you could probably spend half of that and be top 5 of Xfinity.
Yeah.
If you have the right driver.
And you can also see that issue too, where if you devote too much resources to one of the series, Colleague's a good example of that. They started going Cup racing when the next gen car came out, and Xfinity suffered. Yeah. So it's tough to figure it out and to do. And it's not my money, so it's easy for me to sit here and Monday morning quarterback it.
That's right.
So
armchair crew chiefing.
Exactly. But I don't know what the issue is with all that and going forward. But moving on to the good old Cup Series. Some things to kick off. Emphasis with Hill, 3rd consecutive win in Atlanta, 5 total wins. Ties Harvick for Xfinity Series wins. And he's up there with and I remember Junior was talking about this. Even laps led, he was talking about it. He's up there with Junior and Senior on the drafting track style stuff. Not even just the wins, but laps led.
Yeah.
Which is pretty impressive.
Yeah. I still don't like him, but
no, I don't really I don't really care for big country. Moving on, the Fords have been really impressive this year in Cup Series. Blaney getting the pole. Cindric did pretty decent in his running.
Yeah.
It seemed like Cindric, even Barry, that's a Penske car.
Mm-hmm.
And he's up there competing. So
yeah, Penske affiliated car, but yeah,
it's essentially the Penske.
It's their fourth car.
Exactly. So,
undercover. But yeah, the Fords have been doing really well.
Yeah, they've really impressed me because, and somebody pointed out something when they updated their car for this year. Maybe they have a little bit more of a flaring over the wheel wells that might be helping them now, because Toyota had that where Toyota couldn't single car run, but they could go out there and lead if they were being pushed.
Yeah,
and with
Beluga,
yeah, pretty much. And then you had Fords were great at pushing, but they couldn't do anything.
Yeah, and
then Chevrolet had it around. I blame Chevy for getting rid of the Camaro. That's what I'm going to call it, even though it's the same body style. We'll see what happens with that. That's something to keep an eye out on. Yeah, it's crazy to see what was going on at the end of that Cup Series race. Cup Series race kind of felt a little bit like the Xfinity Series when it came to people out front, but you had a lot more jockeying for position in the back of it. And all I kept hearing from the vets that do their own podcast is, we want Daytona to be like Atlanta.
Yeah.
Which I get. I mean, it's quicker, easier to move around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Will it get there? Maybe like what Denny says, lower the spoiler.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to put more horsepower in these cars.
Right.
Unfortunately.
I heard an interesting point made by Corey LaJoy was maybe entertaining some kind of less traction through tire, like treaded tires to have less contact patch.
Interesting.
Because his evaluation is they haven't changed horsepower, but they've increased tire width.
Right.
And you're getting an extra, I think it's extra 1.5 inches of tire on each corner. More. So he's like, you're at 3,400 pounds, whatever it is, and you're getting, opposed to the previous car, you have an extra 1.5 inches of tire at each corner.
Right.
And you have the same horsepower. He's like, it's a no wonder you have traction. Like, it's a no wonder that these cars can just handle, because
that, and Goodyear needs to come out with some. I think they need to do a little bit more research on their compound. I hate the fact that they can go out and they're running these compounds where they can almost go a whole stage with not changing tires.
Yeah.
And the fuel cells are a lot larger now, so you have that to deal with as well.
Yeah.
Something needs to change. I think Atlanta, they run a harder compound than they run out elsewhere. So the debate was make the compound softer so your tire wear is bigger. Or somebody's mentioned something about changing the stage lengths. I don't like that idea because they're already equal. They're like, Atlanta's like 100.
I feel like the only thing stage is going to do is change how people manipulate the race. Like, they're going to figure out new ways to change stuff. Like anymore, like, there's a lot of worry about these trucks becoming fuel mileage races. Yeah. And I have similar concerns. Like, you know, I think Dale alluded to, like, you imagine going and telling all these fans that these guys are running at 56% throttle.
Exactly.
Like, kind of loses the fun. You know, it's kind of that same argument with like a hybrid or an electric motor. It's like, it kind of loses the punch. It's kind of like, you know, we want those V8s. We want 800 horsepower. We want full throttle. Like,
right.
That's what we want. We don't want 450 horsepower.
Interesting off-topic idea talking about V8s. I saw something that I think it was F1 is thinking about going. Maybe
I think Indy is going to a hybrid. Well,
not even the hybrid. They're talking about bringing back V10s.
Okay.
So, you know what? I like the hybrids because they sound cool, especially if you only allow. They
sound cool once they fire on their gas engine.
Yes. So, like, they come in super quiet to the pits. The big time was Le Mans the past few years when they started running them, because you just hear that electric motor whine. You're like, oh, this is silly, and then they just and keep going, and it's like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Especially the vets when they were doing it, and Cadillac, I think, had something about that too.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was pretty cool. Just the sounds.
I mean, there's this raw fact. I mean, look at the 24-hour with Garage 56. all the other cars, people were like, Garage 56, they knew when it was coming, and they knew when it came through. And that's all anybody cared about was the noise coming from Garage 56.
All them
and how
bald
well
eagles.
that car did.
Yeah.
Like, very off topic, but, like, that car competed very well. If it wasn't exhibitioned, it would have been, second or third place?
Something like that. It was
in
wild.
its class. Like, the car was massive compared to these other cars. I mean, it was like, I don't know, foot and a half taller.
Yeah,
like
the picture is so cool to see them all lined up on the parade lap.
Monster. It's a monster.
Yeah.
But everyone loved, like, going through the chicanes and stuff. Just that motor. Just it's hard to beat that. I think that's what people got into the sport for. You know?
It's like if you gave Shaq the agility to run a track race. And the speed.
Yeah.
That's exactly what the 56 car was.
Yeah, it's a good analysis.
Yeah.
I'm just picturing Shaq like, oh, man.
Oh, watch out, guys. Throwing Papa John's pizza at people and stuff.
Right. You get a pizza and you get a pizza.
Yeah. It was crazy. I mean, even like going back to Atlanta, Hocevar made some waves. He frustrated a lot of people.
I would say he continued the wave. He already had some waves, and he's continuing his wave.
He's making
his waves bigger.
Yeah, the issue was, and people have given it his reputation coming from trucks, where he would just plow through people, and then you have everything else going on with that, and now he's in these cup cars where he has speed, which still frustrates me because that's a Spire car. Mm-hmm. Why didn't you give it to the 7 car when LaJoy was there? So
yeah,
but I mean, what he did to the guys there, I mean, he wrecked quite a few people, or he was around a lot of wrecks. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
I don't like the way that he went straight apologized to Hendrick, and I had somebody, I made a comment about it. And he's like, oh, well, they're buying them. It's like, you're still going to respect it. It's like, if Spire had ECR engines instead of Hendrick engines, would he have said the same things he did at the end of that race? Or would he have not said that? Because he didn't apologize to Blaney.
Yeah.
He didn't apologize to Chastain.
Yeah.
And they, Ross has learned, unfortunate, to clean up his act. Not saying there was anything wrong with it, but even to talk, like, he pulled Hocevar into the infield from pit lane to talk to him, so the media wasn't around them to hear what was going on.
Right.
So
I don't remember who heard it from, but it was like, it took Rick Hendrick to talk to Chastain before he kind of settled down. I mean,
right.
In my opinion, this isn't short track, racing anymore. This is top. These cars are not cheap. You can't just go wrecking everyone's car and think you're just going to get away with it. Like, there's a lot of people that have a lot of money on the line that they don't want to see their cars wrecked because of overly aggressive driving. Like, this is your top tier of stock car racing.
And people try to put it to, like, Dale Sr. and so on, because he bodied people out. But those were true stock cars.
Yeah.
They're not these racing machines that are quote-unquote designed to look like stock cars, which they still don't even look like stock cars.
Right.
I mean,
they got windshields.
Yeah, that's about it. Windshields, wheels, and engine. Everything else. Where are you gonna find that kind of transmission?
Yeah.
A vet, but they're not running vets.
And I still think the cars are too durable. Like, I think safety should be first priority. But, like, you go back in the day, if you hit guys the way that these guys hit each other now, those cars, the aero is gone. Mm-hmm. Like, their front nose is crushed. Like,
right.
These guys can slam each other now. I mean, yeah, they have a ton of traction, so it takes a hard hit to get guys, unless you're, of course, swiping across someone's rear bumper. But, like, you can hit each other pretty hard.
Well,
and that's bodies last.
That was the argument that Blaney had. He's like, I think Blaney came out I'm going to read in between the lines of what Blaney was talking about, where he wasn't angry that Hocevar hit him. It's when he hit him.
Yeah.
You still can't hit a guy going into a turn.
Yeah.
You still like that's one of those, you don't do that.
Yeah.
If you want to bump a guy on the straightaway, go for it.
Yeah.
But you guys are in the turn. You can't just go and push somebody right when you're going to get them loose and sideways, which that's what happened to Blaney.
Yeah.
Logano did the same thing to Stenhouse. I mean, everybody throws it at Stenhouse, and I give crap because I call Keselowski Plowski because he'll plow through you too.
Mm-hmm.
But they know when to do it.
Yeah.
It still might result. The end result still may be the same.
Yeah.
But they're not going to go right into a turn and just run right through you.
Mm-mm.
They're gonna do it. So it's tough to figure that one out and to see how everything plays out to that. I think it was Kyle Busch was like, I don't care if I wreck the whole field, I'm going to get him back too.
Yeah.
And how is that going to play out? How's that going to work? Is it going to bite Busch in the butt?
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't. We were just talking about that, He's struggling now to win races.
Mm-hmm.
Does he need to get that mindset still going? He's not doing that, or maybe he needs to do that. I mean, look at everybody's like, oh well, Hosfar was trying to push his way through to win the race. That's why he hit Bell. Like, no, he was looking to take Bell out. Go back and watch the replay.
Yeah,
he was trying to put Bell on the wall.
Yeah,
it wasn't.
You can almost hear it in his tone. I was putting myself in a position to win the race.
Yeah,
I was like, okay, like it's kind of self-incriminating that you're willing to do whatever it took.
Yeah.
Are you the guy that's going to come from 4 lanes back and just blow through a guy and just so you can win the race? Like,
yeah. And that's what NASCAR is trying to stop with the Hell Melon.
Yeah.
They don't want that going on, which I thought that was awesome.
It's very creative.
I mean, he bumped off of Hamlin, but he wrecked his own car to get up there, and he got in there.
Yeah.
He didn't take anybody else out. He didn't wreck the whole field.
No.
But we're still doing that.
But we're okay with guys swiping bumpers.
Yeah.
In corners.
Mm-hmm. Caution flags thrown. Yet again, NASCAR inconsistency is what it is. I've heard that they did the right thing during, I'm trying to remember which race it was. I think it might have been the Xfinity race. They did the right thing calling it because they were wrecking in the back, and they gave Hill the win. But at the same time, you threw it for duel 2 when Eric Jones could have won it. You had less cars.
Yeah.
Denny Hamlin talks about this and harps on it. He's like, "Oh, we got to start fresh. They did the one right." It's like, but are they going to do the same thing again, or is it going to be inconsistency?
Yeah.
They need to stop trying to pander to the crowds or to the teams and pick one and go with it, saying this is how we're going to do this. I don't think it should. It got brought up last year with the 500. The 48, Bowman was ahead of Byron when the caution came out, but they said, oh no, it was the intent of the caution. You can't do that. I mean, I know it's humans pushing buttons, and we don't want to take that away, but at the same time, we can't be like, well, he thought about the caution, so that's when we're going to call it.
Yeah.
That's silly.
Yeah. And there was a meeting. It was a playoff committee meeting. I don't know if you saw that article. And what they were kind of saying is like, oh, it's all safety based. It's all access points to the racetrack for emergency crews. And it's like they kind of acted like they roll into a track on a Friday. They have to figure everything out, and they just to run the races. Guys, you have access to these tracks all year long. Like, if you need to go in and do pre-planning to figure out, okay, a wreck happens in turns 3, then on a green-white, checker type deal, keep it green. Let that roll. Like, they can have a pre-plan and have an idea because the wrecks happen. Look at the black marks at Daytona.
Yeah.
They were all in the same exact spot. The tires.
Yeah. I don't. That and they have the connect the. What am I trying to say? I can't think of what I want to say. The like iRacing and all that to do stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could go in there, especially as a team, and say, okay, we want this to happen. Let's anticipate it and see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not. You're not in the car, so you can't fully feel it, but you can still see the car is going to show what it's going to do.
Right. I just don't like the way that they blow it off as safety, as safety cruise access points on the track.
Right.
But like they act like they don't know about the tracks. Like they act like they don't. Like you guys can have a plan. Like
right.
You can have a plan as to how you're going to attack each situation. There's a handful of major situations that happen every race. Have each one of those figured out for each race. So when those situations happen, yeah, the guy that's pushing the yellow button, I'm sure he makes a lot of money. Sure, he's going to have to know and memorize when these things happen. This is when I do or don't press caution. Like that's your job. Like you're one guy in all of NASCAR that it's your job to press the caution button.
Yeah.
You should be able to study the tracks, know what scenarios happen, and know how to call a caution or not a caution.
Right.
And it's just like, it seems like they like blow it off as safety, and they act like they can't like have a plan as to like when or when you can't throw a caution, because it is inconsistent. And I think they almost admitted it. Like, yes, it's inconsistent because the different tracks have different, access points. It's like, okay, I get that, but like, how is a turn 3 crash on a checker race with 5 guys out front? How is that affecting anything?
Right.
Like, it's not.
Yeah.
On Bristol, yeah, sure. You got a tiny little track, like,
right. Yeah.
but you got a 2.5 mile track, and you're worried about cars that are 1.5 miles behind the checker line. Like,
yeah,
you got to do better.
Make it more consistent to the track, not overall. I mean,
every track's different,
right?
So you're not going to have one rule that fills almost every track either.
Or why not? Why do we have to always have these green white checkers? Why can't we want to finish on a checkered, but we haven't.
Yeah,
it's been the white flag, or like you're saying, Daytona. If you want to throw the green white checker, throw the caution on the white flag and end it, wait until halfway around the track. If they're reckoning 4, I mean, you have enough time to kind of slow down, or coming out of 2.
Yeah,
let them race to it there. Don't throw it immediately right after they cross the line.
I know from the driver's side, like the guys that have podcasts, I think there was some talk about like there's enough technology that you could caution certain cars and not other cars. Like something in the dash that boom lights up yellow, you're under caution, you slow down. Those other guys, they stay green. Like finish the race for the guys that are still competing.
I mean, we have,
because they talked about, okay, there's guys in the back, like, okay, they're gonna go Days of Thunder through the smoke. Like, maybe not the best idea.
Right.
Throw those guys to caution, but there's like 4 or 5 guys that make it through the pack. Let them stay green.
Well, this goes to the idea too of kind of jumping it, and it kind of segues us to our upcoming race. Is we're going to a road course. We're going to our first road course of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we have to have full course cautions?
Yeah,
I mean, these are 2.5 mile, 2.8 mile tracks, so on.
Yeah,
and we're having full course cautions, so it takes 6 laps, 20 minutes, whatever.
Yeah.
Just throwing numbers out there.
Yeah.
Why can't we have localized cautions like the other? I mean, you have F1 does it, Le Mans does it. All these people, this section you're in a caution, slow down.
Yeah. And there's enough digital world that you can track speed. I mean, cars SMT, you can see everything these cars do. Steering wheel angle, throttle position.
Right.
Like, okay, if he's speeding in the cautioned area, that's a pit road penalty.
Right.
Send him to pits for a lap. Like, there's ways to enforce safety things, and people won't do it. If you're rolling through in second and third place and you speed through a caution section and you got to go to pit, park it, and then come back out, you're not going to do that again.
No, for sure. So I think there's a lot. I think NASCAR needs to embrace more technology. It's going to cost more probably, but at the same time, do you want your sport to be bigger?
Yeah,
I think you have to spend the money to play.
I think there's a, I don't know how to convey it, but like you're going to lose fans because of like just delays. And like you look at these races that they're as much green as they are yellow on the on the broadcast header. It's like Nobody wants to sit there and watch cars do 48 miles an hour around the track.
What's even frustrating to that, too, is why do we have so many caution laps?
Yeah.
If you know you're going to be having to spend 10 laps or so, or, whatever it is to that track to clean it up, red flag them.
Yeah.
And clean it up, and then don't waste. We're already wasting laps at stage ends, stage breaks, because we have to go caution. I thought that was the best thing they did when they let the road courses keep going without cautions at stage breaks.
Yeah.
But, we're not doing that anymore. They brought that back, which I think was I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Some people thought it was great, but I think let the brakes, because it plays into strategy too.
Yeah.
Do you want to pit before the break? Do you want to pit right after the break? So on.
Yeah.
I think the strategy's kind of gone by the wayside, as you alluded to earlier, with the whole idea of we're going to run 75%, 50% throttle until we get to a caution at the end of the stage break.
Yeah. See if you can flip it, or
right.
Just make it to the end of the race, not get up,
Yeah.
not get involved in a wreck, make it to the end of the race in your top 10 or 20.
Right.
And you have a chance at winning.
Yeah.
Like that's
it's silly. I mean, what other sport does that? I mean, let's compare it. You have your football teams. They run a prevent defense. Most of the time they're getting burned on a prevent defense and then lose the game. Hockey, do you go more defense? You're gonna lose it because you're spending more time in your offensive zone. Mm-hmm. Now those are team sports, but it's kind of the same idea, I think.
Yeah.
Where you sit there and you're playing it, but then you slow the whole field down.
Yeah.
Let somebody blow by you. But if you're running at half throttle, you're allowing these cars, especially on the larger tracks like a Daytona, Talladega, you could be allowing these cars that lost the draft to come back and catch up to you because they're running 10 mile an hour slower by themselves than they are as a pack.
Yeah.
If they're running full bore and you guys are running half throttle, they'll catch up, hopefully.
Yeah.
Should.
Yeah, and I've kind of been thinking about it. Like, I know nobody wants the on paper, nobody wants the race that somebody runs away with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's been tainted by the broadcasting being so focused on positions 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
There's so much racing that happens behind the top 5 guys.
Right.
That never gets seen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I used to follow motocross and supercross. Guys would walk away with leads of like 10, 15 seconds.
Right.
It never mattered. No one in the sport ever talked about it. You didn't care. Like, that guy was just really fast, and he just had a really good night. Like, you didn't care that he was that far ahead because they would focus on all these other pairings racing for 10th place, and they need these points to do something. Like, there's a lot of racing that happens that doesn't get covered.
Yeah, and with these cars, the way the sponsors are, it may help some of the smaller teams if they're fighting for these 10th positions, and it's a good battle.
Yeah.
And they show it on TV. I think the best thing that's happened right now is, and I think the TNT's with Max, is Max has put out there, you don't even need to get the NASCAR app anymore if you have a Max subscription.
Yeah.
I've been doing it recently. You pick a driver, you watch their car, and you get the radio.
Yeah.
Or they have, I saw people do it where they had a TV set up next to their TV where they had the Fox broadcast on, and then they had the 4-car setup so they can watch the cars.
Yeah. So for me, I'd rather see, and it's an easy say, but I'd rather see more horsepower, see some races where guys do run away with it, but I want to see more focus on the rest of the field. Like, there's 40 guys out there racing.
Yeah.
You only ever hear about 3 or 4.
Right, yeah, and it
seems like favorites sometimes. It just depends on what's going on, but I would just rather see more of the racing than just the top 1 position. Like, especially if it's a runaway race, like, hey, check in, talk about that driver, talk about his year. But like, if a guy's got a fast car and that team was able to do something to make their car better and they pass tech, good on them. Like,
well, here's a genius idea for a Fox or an NBC. Instead of going through and keeping their little side by side where they're talking about, like, the pit crew or whatever, or they have their little special interviews that they do with the teams, like, they're talking to Logano and so on. That, why not put a picture-in-picture with, put your battle for first if the dude's running away with it, in the smaller one, and then have some of these other battles further back in the bigger screen.
Yeah.
And I mean, or swap it. Talk about the leader of the race.
Yeah.
You know, talk about them, but then you have these other battles in the other corner.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about what, you know, Logano's hair club for men that he got going on or whatnot, you know, or, you know, Larson ran out and took the chili bowl and he wants to talk about how great that was.
Yeah.
They'd rather see the racing. Yeah. I think if you brought that back, you'd probably get a little bit more of the old school people back.
Yeah.
And you could get the new people that are like, oh, I picked a random person, or I see that Larson's doing it, so I can still watch him.
Yeah.
That's why I chose to do the in-car cameras, because I follow the people that I want to see on Max or the app.
Right.
And I still have that going on.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually a challenge sometimes to try to see live what position someone's in if they're below 20th, like higher than 20th. Because they barely ever scroll through it.
Right.
It's like, okay, my guy's 28th, and it takes you almost a minute to even see him on the leaderboard. Yeah. You have no clue where he's at because it's just a big bee's nest of cars.
Right.
And it's like, there's a lot more than just the first couple cars.
I give kudos to CW because I think that they've kind of gone through that a little bit more.
Yeah.
They scroll through a little bit more. I think it's kind of cool that they put the cars also down there. Like, they'll put your top 10 cars so you can see what they look like.
Yeah.
But I think they're scrolling through it. Maybe it's because I'm paying attention to it more. But, yeah, it's frustrating, too, because you could have somebody fighting for that 20th spot. They could be 22nd or so, and they're not going to show up on the pylon for another, 5 minutes because they're scrolling through. And then next thing you know, they want to show the in-car data for whoever's leading.
Yeah.
Or whoever's second.
Or someone's feet while they're driving.
Yeah. It's like, oh, yeah, they toe drag the brake on a... they're not making it, you know.
If you want to see a foot video, watch SVG this weekend.
Yeah,
that'll be a show.
That'll be something. Which, I mean, that's weird too. So moving on to that, that's a good thing, good way to move in to our next upcoming race. We have our first road course coming on, Circuit of the Americas. It is going to be different. They are running the shorter course this weekend. They've shaved off, I think, a mile or so of the track.
Yeah.
But they've added
30 laps.
More, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
It's a 90, 92, 90 something.
I haven't heard any or see any downsides at this point.
Yeah.
It looks like it was a good deal.
Spotters are slightly complaining, but they've also come up and said, we've gotten spoiled because we could just sit there for 40 seconds and not do anything.
Yeah. To
now, crap, I got to pay attention a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's supposed to put the cars in front of the fans more, especially at Circuit of the Americas, because once you get toward the back end of that track, there's no stands, nothing like that.
Yeah.
So I think there's a positive there going forward, and maybe it'll overshadow their little track system that they have there, where they're like, oh, your speed, you overtook wrong in sector 3 because you drove over the line. When did we ever start being so nitpicky about lines on a road course?
Acting like Indy cars.
Yeah, I mean, these are full-body cars. They can take a hit.
Yeah.
You're not going to bump a person and they're going to lose their upper control arm and flip the tire over and then they're done.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen.
Yeah, I am too.
I think it's kind of weird that the people have Larson and Elliott and so on over SVG in the betting.
Yeah.
Listening to that yesterday, SVG was 4th. I think he was lower than the chart that we have here.
Yeah.
That's wild. So
yeah, I guess it's just based off of recent momentum and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And that's all negotiable in terms of
their argument
it's not
was
super
SVG
factual.
lost his luster after the Chicago. He wrecked in the Chicago race.
Yeah.
Because of rain again.
Yeah.
I get you want to go to these different road courses or street courses, but you got to pay attention to the way the weather is. Every time around 4th of July, it's gonna rain in Chicago.
Yeah.
Let's keep going back there though, guys.
Yeah.
It's what we want to do. And we're going to flood it because, we put all these concrete barriers that are going to block the water. Run it at a time when it's not. They need to put some studded tires on these cars that'll run in the snow.
That'd be something.
They do it over in Europe. The Euro races they run, some of them in the snow. Shoot, I thought it was pretty wild. I stumbled across the snowmobile races that they have in Michigan.
Yeah.
They have like a 600 lap race in Michigan, the snowmobiles.
Is it like flat, like NASCAR style stuff, or is it like motocross style?
No, it's not motocross.
I've seen snowcross, but
this is an oval track that they run.
That's crazy.
It is wild. It is pretty cool. I can't remember what they call it. It's like right near the Canadian border.
Okay.
It's pretty cool to watch. So, I mean, that's just going on a tangent, but
yeah. Well, I think we'd be mistaken if we didn't bring up Connor Zilic.
Yeah, he's coming out. He's running for Trackhouse. Red Bull. Red Bull's back in the game.
Yep.
More than just it gives you wings on the back of a car.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what he can do, because he won his first, what was it, Xfinity debut he had on a road course?
I think so. I think it was his Xfinity. Yeah.
And I think it's going to be cool to see what he can do.
Yeah. High expectations, and like he's very likable. Because like he's not a jerk. Like he interviews really well.
Yeah.
Like he's pretty humble. Like he's very likable.
Right.
So I think he's going to give Chase Elliott a run for the money for a fan favorite here in a couple years.
That would be good. I mean, I think the only reason Elliott wins it's because he's got that Elliott name to him.
It definitely helps.
I mean, Junior, and I don't think Junior kind of steps away from this. I don't think Chase does too. Junior, I think his was because of being, Senior's son. That's what got him those most liked favorite driver, was because of that.
Yeah.
When he retires, what are we going to have? We're going to have, can't go on Keelan, can't go on Brexton, because their dads weren't that much liked because of their hothead temper.
Yeah.
But who knows? I mean, I'm looking forward to this race. Zilic, I want to see what Zilic can do.
Yep.
I think he's going to outperform my expectations. I don't see him running the top 5, but I think he could, especially if he came out in an Xfinity car. I mean, these are totally two different vehicles.
Yeah.
But
it just depends on who he's racing near.
Yeah.
If he gets near the double sevens, there's a good chance he's going to get punted off the track.
That's very true.
But if he's up there with Reddick and McDowell and SVG, I think that's going to be a wicked. You're going to see some lap times. If you get in a bunch of those guys that are all battling it out, you're going to see some wild racing.
That was a name. You named a name that wasn't even brought up in the betting odds for this race. McDowell.
Good one to put on for the weekend.
Yeah. It's like, why McDowell has held his own on road course races. I mean, that's what he kind of, if I remember correctly, is what he came up on.
He's kind of got a new flame. He's kind of got a new energy this year. So it's like, I think he's definitely a contender. I mean, you never know.
He's got I won't take away he's got a learning curve because he's going from Ford to Chevy.
Yeah.
He's got to figure out how these Chevys handle. Yeah. But I wouldn't be surprised he's up there running top 10.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah. But we know Spire has they have a simulator.
Yeah.
So I'd imagine he's been spending a little bit of time in that to get up to speed with the new manufacturer.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's this is going to be one of those races, what happens and how it handles and how it plays out, especially for people and how they run and how they handle and the newer cars in their new position. Gragson's one of those, not road course, but just hopefully he can handle his own more. He was doing pretty decent at Atlanta until he got wrecked out because of Elliott, and that was the joy they got taken out by Elliott, and he was trying to climb his way up.
He was so close to getting through that one.
Yeah,
he barely got hit.
Mm-hmm. So it's I keep saying it's going to be a good race.
I'm excited.
Just going to it. One of the things that got kind of brought up with the whole racing at COTA, I think Zilic came out and said in an interview, he's going into my first Cup race at COTA. It's going to be a big challenge for me. A lot of question marks, but I want to go in and enjoy it and have fun. I think that's all you can ask. Then they asked a couple other people, like SVG, I think it was. I missed that going 3, and no one knows who I am. Going there, no one knows who I am. I mean, he's flying under the radar. You're not under the radar anymore, bud.
Mm-mm.
You've been predicted to win at least one of these road courses that get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
So,
I would say it's a thanks to podcasting that got him partially where he is today.
Yeah.
He's getting some TV time, but I think the TV time's coming from his popularity on some of these major podcasts that you can listen to.
Right.
So
that
it's modern era news.
And he sums up perfectly the whole idea with the changing of the tracks that we talked about earlier. He was out and he said, I did like the long track, but I see why they shortened it. Most of more time past the stands and more action, and the cut through that's done from turn 6, we didn't lose any passing spots. The extra bit, turn 7 through 11, there's only one real passing spot, and they're keeping one with a cut through. So and then they're actually, like you were saying, they're moving up to 95 instead of 68, and they cut the track 1.1 miles.
Yeah.
So they're going from 3.4 to 2.4.
I guess it sounds like it was a layout that they already had. They called it a national layout or something like that.
Yeah, so
it's already a layout they had.
Right. They ran the Formula One layout.
Okay.
To begin with. And I can see why they want to shorten it, because these cars are slower.
They are slower. They don't handle the same.
Right.
They pass differently.
Yes. So to move it to a national layout, which I would assume is more like your IMSA style cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should prove to be more action.
Makes you wonder why they didn't do this originally. Like, I wonder, like,
that's a good question.
On a road course that has optionality on how you run it, like, I'd love to had some feedback on, like, how those meetings went. Like, okay, which layout is NASCAR going to race? Like, what made them decide to have that long back end of the track versus just doing this originally?
Yeah.
But I think it's a cool track. I'd hate to see it not in the circuit. I think as a fan, it'd be a tough one to attend unless you get a really good ticket, because, like, maybe this year's better with the layout, but with the old layout, like, you only saw, it was like watching rally racing. Like, you see a portion of the track and then you're like watching a screen for the rest. So like, it's cool, but
that's one of those tracks that I want to go to, and I want to go into their little pavilion, whatever that
the tower
thing,
whatever they call it.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
Yeah, that would.
But I never looked into the, like, feasibility, like, how much does it cost? Like, what's it take to actually get up the tower? Like,
I don't know. I looked at going to the race at one point, because Austin Bergstrom Airport, the main airport in Austin's not that far away from the track.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, I got family.
Yeah.
I had family around Houston. I got friends down in Houston. It's like fly to Houston and then drive to Austin. It's a couple of hours away, and do that.
It'd be a cool one to go to.
That's one, I think that would be more enjoyable for me than going to the Glen. I mean, the Glen's got the history, but you're set up the way you were, and the cost to get into Watkins Glen is so expensive. Yeah. Like, even if you camp, like, you don't even camp on the track, and then you got to buy a ticket to get into the race to see it.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
And seeing a portion of the track, like, TV's gotten so good, it kind of makes it challenging to want to go and sit out in the heat and watch one turn of a racetrack.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You can watch in-car cameras. You can watch everything from your couch today.
Yeah.
That's so different than...
Well, we kind of do it in June and July. Yeah. Or June this year, but July.
Yeah.
But we have some more technology that'll help us with that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Who were your picks for this COTA?
I would say I'm between Reddick and McDowell.
Okay.
I obviously would like to see Zilich do well.
Yeah.
Because I think he's a pretty humble guy, and I think it'd be cool to see him do. In a way, it'd be cool to see him do well, but I think for his career, it might not be great for him just to, like, come out just flying. Like,
right.
It was put your mind, like, on, like, all right, I can do this. I'm already the best. Like, it might set him back for a long-term career.
Yeah.
But, I think Reddick's always done pretty well here. SVG is obviously a contender, but he's also, like, the secret's out. Everyone knows who he is now. So, like, people are going to race him hard, and they know what he's capable of because they're seeing him every week now. So
Yeah.
he's not just going to be some provisional guy that just hops in for a street race. He's
Right.
Everybody knows who he is. Everyone knows how he races. And I think he's going to be raced harder than what, people are going to be more comfortable around him to where they can race him a little bit harder rather than just like keeping distance or trying to just keep away from him.
Right. Yeah.
So I think your top 3-4 would be, I would probably want to see Reddick win. I'd like to see him back up there. So between Reddick, Bell, SVG, and McDowell, that's my top 4.
What I think is interesting that they're doing at this track, I think Reddick's got a good chance. I would put sure shot Reddick, dark horse, and he's not really even a dark horse, CSVG going up there and winning it. They're running a IMSA style race in between the Xfinity race on Saturday. They got a 45-minute race before Xfinity, and they got a 45-minute race after Xfinity on Saturday, which is pretty wild, if you ask me. Let's see, they're running it. Where do they? I saw the name of it. It is a IMSA course race that they got going on. It is VPRC is what they're calling it. I don't know what the acronym stand for, but it's a 45-minute timed race, and then you get into the Xfinity Series practices and qualifying, and then their race is going to be at 1:30 on Saturday, and then they're closing it down for celebrations and so on. And then they're moving on to this other 45-minute timed race. Xfinity Series will leave, and then you have the Cup Series race starting, pace vehicle laps and so on. Trying to get a 2:30 is when the Cup Series is going to run on Sunday. So, and they're running 2 practice rounds for Cup Series. I think those are on Friday. So that, to give them time, if you get Prime and you watch, that's a good watch, or at least put it in the background to see what's going on. Cup Series is going to be running on, I believe it is Friday that they're going to be running that. I could be wrong looking at it. Xfinity's got practice at 4 on Friday, and so it'll be one to look at, see, especially with that new layout, see how it goes and how it plays out. The way too early, as I'm calling it, driver standings. So we have our 2 winners, and they're in there, but Blaney's sitting there first. Then you got Byron, Reddick, Cindric. Bubba's 5th right now in standings. He's 23 points below Blaney, and we're only talking 87 points right now tendered out for the leader. And he's not even a winner. You got Byron sitting 2nd, and you got Seabell sitting 12th at wins. And so it's Riley Hurst up there in 18th, Eric Jones, Buescher 16th, Hocevar's 15th, McDowell 14th. So, yeah, it'll be one of those, keep an eye out. The guys that are low that kind of hurt, that I want to see do better. Gragson's sitting 36th with only 13 points. I mean, shoot, not contending for a win. This will tell you how way too early it is. You got Jimmy Johnson sitting 24th. So it's you got some people up there wouldn't expect, and see if they can hang with it. McDowell's been a consistent in that top 15-ish, but Hocevar's sitting 15th. He's technically in the playoff spot if it were going to end. Yeah. And so
I feel like there's definitely a DNF coming in his future, so
I think you're right about that. I mean, Bubba's out there. If he would stop doing the whole, put his finger to his mouth, the quiet people, I think he's got a lot of potential. It's just trying to get out of that big-headedness of his and go from there.
Yeah.
That's what makes him not liked as much.
Yep.
don't call it a race thing, because it's not because his mom's black. It's the way he holds himself.
Yeah.
And the way he acts.
Yeah. Yeah, I know he wasn't much of a fan favorite. Obviously he had fans, but like he was kind of getting, seemed like I didn't see any of his stuff anywhere. Like it just like no one was really following him.
Yeah.
And then he kind of seemed like he was straightening up. He had, the on-track issues, and he's like apologizing for the way he's acted, and I was like, oh, hey, this is cool. Like,
right.
He's turning a new leaf, and gonna get some fans back, and it's kind of like same old stuff's kind of coming back around again. So it's like, boy.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see what happens going forward. You got our picks for Circuit of the Americas, and we'll roll from there. And in the coming weeks, we should have extra stuff put on the podcast, and hopefully everything plays right, and we'll have hopefully some special things going on. We'll see.
Little teasers.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully. But, I mean, they're not as big as teasers as Cletus McFarland on Dell Jr. saying they're making a redneck aircraft carrier out of pontoon boats.
Yeah, that's something.
But, if you get more people like him in the sport, I want to get his brain out of running Talladega. I mean, let him run it, but put him on one of these shorter courses.
Yeah.
I mean, did you hear what he did this past weekend at his track that he owns? 98, I think it was like 98 or something. Nissan Altimas.
Oh, nice.
In a race.
Nice.
There was carnage everywhere.
I'm sure.
It was wild.
Yeah, he's got a following. Major following.
Yeah. He's good for the sport, and I think old heads need to get out of that thought process that he's not there. The last bit of news, and this isn't so much new news, Jordan Bianchi is reporting that Dodge may be entering the sport back again as early as next year.
Wow. As
a truck. And they're eyeing, I think it was 27 and 28 for a Cup Series.
Interesting.
So, I think it'd be cool to see some of these other manufacturers like a Honda or a Toyota. Well, Toyota's in there, but a Honda or something like that in. I'd like to see. I'm tired of seeing Chevrolet as a Chevrolet, and it's only been 2 races. Let's put a Cadillac in there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a GM vehicle.
Yeah.
And then in other news, I was reading today, Cadillac has formed their group to go into Formula One.
Okay.
It's the managing group that the Dodgers, the TMC, something like that. But they also have Spire, they have Andretti, they have those groups are teaming up for Formula One.
Interesting.
So I hope that they do better than like a Haas. Haas is starting to do better in Formula One from what I've seen. But I want to see them actually go out there and compete and not sit, 20th, 23rd, or whatever. So let's put more American stuff out there. If you're going to do it, which is I think what people are trying to get NASCAR to do, like let's move the Clash to like another country. Put more American stuff in the other races. Because NASCAR is built on oval tracks, and where are you going to find oval tracks? They're out there, but they're hard to find.
Yeah.
So move it that way.
Yeah.
So let's, if you guys have a pick for COTA, put it in the comments, and we'll see what goes on and see it, and we'll discuss the carnage or lack thereof next week.
Yeah.
So
should be lots of action.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And hopefully it's not a lot of race control induced action.
Yeah.
By their technology. I mean, we're asking them to do technology, but then, it makes it a little bit fearful with how they ran COTA last year with the technology. So we'll see what happens from there. But we'll catch you guys next week on the podcast. If you like this podcast, please feel free. Please like it and share it with as many people as you know. Let's get this thing blown up that maybe we can get some bigger people on here and actually do some real interviews.
Yeah.
Instead of just 2 guys
having fun.
Yeah, having fun and cutting up. So we'll catch you guys next week.
Thanks for stopping by.
See ya.